Good afternoon. It is Saturday afternoon, actually, about a quarter after 4. And I've been not lax, but I just haven't caught up to some things I needed to do in order to make anything I was doing worth your while. And so I think I'm kind of caught up, understanding I still haven't really gotten my fingernails dirty in discussion questions. That's tomorrow's job. At any rate, what I'm seeing is wonderful. I mean, I really am very impressed with all of that, but you all deserve the right for me to respond to them, and I intend to. As I said before, I think there's 10 of you, so each of you responds to one other person. Now it's about 30 entries, at least 30 entries per week, and they begin to pile up. So I usually don't, I will read them all. That's a promise, but I don't always feel obligated to respond to everybody's point every time. But I will certainly respond to everybody's point at least once along the way in a given week. And if you're not hearing from me about that, don't be afraid to kick me in the shins and say, Dr. B, what do you think of my comment? And then I'll come back to you before you finish pressing send. That's the way I'm built as far as that's concerned. And the only other housekeeping I can think of is two things, really. And I'm being repetitive. Is that there's usually 2 videos a week, and there will be 2 this week as well. This is the first of the 2 for the week of September 9th through next Sunday, the 16th. And this will be the collective mindset video for chapter 4. And I don't feel a need to really press this as hard as I would if I would not if I hadn't already begun to teach you a lot of this. So I'm going to presume that you're fairly well versed in this, although you can't ever be completely versed in this, because this is a complex topic, and it's a topic that educators talk about, but don't necessarily, in my experience, really engage in the way it should. Now, as we said, this book is divided into several parts. I am now into part 3, which is the growth zones. The first of which being systems thinking. Now, before there's 2 things I wanted to do. One is the quote at the beginning of the chapter for 2 reasons. And then I have a little bit of an anecdote to share with you as well that I think you're going to be interested in. I don't think I've shared this with you. And anyway, the quote at the beginning of the chapter is, a bad system will beat a good person every time. My rhetorical question to you is, haven't you seen that happen before? Well-meaning, effective people want to do the right thing, but they're up against a system that is designed, maybe not intentionally, but in one way or another, subtly or overtly designed to obstruct or not permit you to be as effective as you want to be, as well as be effective with the other people with whom you're working. And that's a problem. Now, it falls to you as leader, especially a leader who's going to reshape, change E&L programs to more nearly meet the needs of the children whom you're serving, as well as fit those children in within the larger population. Well, there's sort of another story that I shouldn't get into now, but I will. Connected to that, I didn't think of it until I mentioned it 10 seconds ago. I had a dissertation, I had a mentee at St. John's. You're working with a mentor, they call the mentee, and the mentor helps the mentee finish her dissertation. Most every other school I've ever been in doing doctorates, it was chairperson and student, but in St. John's we call them mentor and mentee. So this mentee is a lovely person. Woman happened to be from Argentina, and a delight. One of the hardest working people I will ever meet. She's in charge. I'm not sure if she still is. I think she probably is. She was in charge of adult education program in a highly diverse school district, very poor district. Not as poor as it pretends to be, but pretty poor on whole with a W. And so she ran all the night programs to help these folks get citizenship, and as well as learn the things that they wanted to learn and what everybody else wanted to learn. So I had to do what's called a site visit. I enjoyed doing those. And I had been in the school district many times over the past in different ways as a consult, but I hadn't been everywhere. So I went to the high school this time, and she started to tour me through the school. And she connected me up with the assistant principal, who was also one of my mentees. Anyway, he and she are walking me around, and they bring me to a wing of the school. It's a very large high school. And there was a big padlock on, well, not a padlock, a big lock on the door. And I said, "What's this?" And they said, "This is they called it ESL at the time. This is the ESL wing." So I was kind of nonplussed about that. I said, "They're locked in here." So yeah, they go to gym here. They have cafeteria here. So I thought, so they're isolated from the rest of the building. He says, "Yeah, we think that's the best way to do things." I was blown away and in complete disagreement with that. They did give me one reason that certainly made some sense on a very assorted level. And I'll come to that in a moment. But they basically said, "Yeah, that's what we do." And I said, "Why would you isolate these children from the rest of the school and expect them to be able to become part of the population of the school?" Well, it's just better, more effective to help give them the programs they need here. Now that didn't include bilingual. They somehow got the children out of that wing into another place. I don't remember the details about that, but in essence, that's where they had to be. Now, the only excuse that I got that, again, I probably has some validity, and I wish I didn't even have to share it with you, but maybe some of you can guess it. The school has I'm not sure how strong it is, but certainly they were aware of the fact that there are gangs in that school. And what was happening, according to them, was that the gangs were, I can't think of the right verb, but they were really not picking on it. They were really terrorizing these kids, these ENL kids, most of whom were from the same countries that they were from, and bringing them into their gangs and threatening them, and all sorts of terrible things. And so they thought the best way to handle this would be to keep them away from the gangs during the school day. He sighed. But the world we're living in, and I mean, that had some validity, I suppose, but in my mind, it didn't. The system that the high school put together could have done better than that. That's just my point of view. Now, to come back to the quote, someone might have railed in the wilderness in that school and said, "Don't do this. This is wrong. Let's find another way to handle this." And that person would have gone up against a system that would not permit you to reintegrate those children into the whole WHOLE of the school. And so I needed to share that with you about the terms of the word system and how it isolates. I shouldn't use that verb twice in one conversation. Breaks out, highlights, emphasizes how the leader has to, people in the building, how the leader really has to recognize the interaction of the subsystems. The phrase we sometimes hear is people are working in silos. Okay, for those of you who don't remember your farming, silo is a big, long tube, I guess you can call it. You sometimes see in scenes of farm houses or barns where they store the grain. And so the grain is kept in this place to keep the mice out, I suppose, and be able to access the grain to package it and get it out to market. And so if there's a silo A and silo B, silo A and silo B don't know what each other is doing. They may be working right next to each other and they are not familiar with that. So one of my rhetorical questions to you is, well, have you seen that premise? And the answer is, you don't have to tell me. I know the answer. Yes. It happens naturally. It happens because people aren't paying attention. It happens because it wasn't particularly planned so it wouldn't happen. Sometimes planned by design, as I mentioned before in the anecdote I told you about. And so it's not an alien issue to any place you are. Understand that. And here's my anecdote before I go back to page 51. And that is that a true story. I had a fellow He's out of St. John's. He was my mentee. It's 7 or 8 years ago, maybe a little longer now. And he is or was, I'm not sure if he was an assistant superintendent or a director of E&L programs in 6 middle schools in central Queens. So he was the person who answered for how things were going and to integrate, coordinate, better word, those programs with the whole of the school and so forth. So he became very, and for his doctorate, he became very enamored of the systems disciplines premises. And he founded an instrument, another word for a questionnaire or a survey. And the survey measured those 5 areas I've talked about ad nauseum and will continue to talk about until this course is finished. In no particular order: systems thinking itself, shared vision, which is the next chapter in this book, and we have broken out as a separate issue. Systems thinking, shared vision, mental models, which you've also certainly pointed out, and something I think you probably encounter every day of your academic professional lives. Team learning, that is to say, when groups learn how to empower and thereby learn from each other, as well as take actions together. And personal mastery, where the organization takes pains to continue to nurture and to train each of their students, of their stakeholders, to continue to have the skills they need as things evolve and how things change. Technology comes to mind straight away, but there's plenty of other examples of that, One of you, I think it was Kay, was it UK? I think it was a couple of you in that office hours last week, which, by the way, is not this week. It will be the following week until I make a decision about weekly. And one of you was saying how they're introducing a new literacy system. For the last heaven knows how long, it was the balanced literacy Columbia Teachers College approach was the answer to everybody's prayers, and now suddenly it's not. And I just read, I'm not laughing at this is a pretty critical issue, that Lucy Corgan is no longer associated with Columbia University, and she's starting her own, not her own college, but her own institute or something to continue the work. Obviously, I'm sure with some changes to adapt to the objections by research that seem to be arising. I have opinions about that, but that's another course to teach. So at any rate, this fellow was in charge of all those kinds of good things. And he found this instrument, as I said, and measured all 5 of those disciplines. Now, I won't give you the blow by blow on this, but what he did was he administered the instrument to all teachers in each of the 6 schools. I'm hesitating on that. I'm trying to remember. It was all teachers or just the ESL teachers? All teachers. And what he was trying to do is measure the learning organization health. See how healthy the organism was. If you keep talking about the organism of a human being, if your stomach hurts, your whole body hurts, maybe you can't think about being a student right now. We know there are subsystems within our own being, and there are subsystems within a school organization or any organization, and they all have to be healthy and integrated for the whole with the W to be healthy. And so what he wanted to do is measure the teacher's perceptions of the learning this organization's existence. Does shared vision really exist? People know about how to make systems thinking work. Was there opportunities to grow and so forth? He also went about, and he actually did the same thing with the principals, but I won't, that's another conversation. It's interesting too. But here's to cut to the chase. What he found was there were 6 buildings. Each of them got a score. He summed everything up and averaged it and did all kinds of statistical work on that. Each of them came up with a score. The building that came up with the best learning organization score, those 5 disciplines, also had the highest, nicest flat scores. And backwards and backwards and backwards. The building with the lowest systems health, learning organization health scores had the lowest, nicest lat scores. So now I'm asking kind of smugly, does that verify the fact that the more systemically healthy, that is to say, learning organization healthy per Peter Senge, did all those variables have to exist in order for the building to serve all of the students? In this case, we were measuring the LYSOSLAC scores, but of any performance measure that you wanted to use. That's a true anecdote, he shouted, and it speaks well for what I think, how it verifies and validates how the learning organizations disciplines, as described by Peter Senge, have to be answered for, have to be there. And that's what this chapter is pretty much about. Again, I am not going to read every page. It's not a real long chapter for the most part. It's kind of very short, actually, where it describes these same things we've already talked about in a PowerPoint and some other videos. But I do want to go back to those essential points on page 51. And this is right out of what I just said to you. As far as essential points are concerned, a healthy organization, like a healthy organism, like a human being, has subsystems that must also each be healthy and properly integrated with the whole. And who's responsible for that? Well, it's easy to say the leader, but that's not totally true. It's for everyone to be responsible for that. But the leader certainly has to take the lead on having it all come together. I'm using the same phrase twice. Has to take the initiative to bring that together. We said the Senge identifies 5 pieces of that. Okay, and we reiterated the point that a learning organization is one that practices Senge's disciplines, so they continue to learn together, to grow and to evolve and to change, he shouted, as they see things coming up the road, as they see the emerging future. And I'm using that word. I think I've used it already, but I'm going to start hammering words like that, even that much more at you up the road, as they see the emerging future. My wife was looking at the paper the other day, and she said, look at all these kids. I'm not even going to tell you what I'm looking at. Never mind. Looking outside. I would tell you, but it's really totally off topic, but it's kind of making me kind of upset as I'm watching this. I would just say a lady's walking her dog on my lawn. And if I weren't talking to you right now, I'd be outside having a conversation with her. You're laughing at me or with me at this point? Okay, we know what they are. We just identify them. They're shared vision, mental models, team learning, personal mastery, and systems thinking itself. And I can't emphasize enough, although I know I've already said it about 1,000 times. We teach them to you in each chapter. We talk to them separately in a silo, so to speak, in each chapter to make it simple enough for you to recognize what they're about. However, they're not discrete. They trip over each other. If you have poor mental models and no opportunity to explore them, it's very likely that there's pretty poor shared vision, don't you think? They all intersect with each other, all of them. Okay, now I'm looking at the issues and themes, and you'll see that the discussion question I just posted before I started this video is there'll probably be another one. I have to tell you on this week. But right now, for the first discussion question, I haven't decided what the second one will be, if there will be one. Is offered to you in a different way. When I'm going to say to you, I'm not going to have you do this every week, but in this case, I am. The question, I haven't got it in front of me, but essentially it asks you to pick one of these 4 themes. and then to use that theme to compare it to your own experiences or with your own perceptions of how you see these things in your own school and what you would do about it or what you're doing about it as such. Especially if you mean to convert these issues or to convert good things and to overcome things that may be negative to make the whole with a W better. So I always apologize for when I read to you, but I've already read to you without apologizing. So here it comes again. It's 4 questions. I want you to consider all 4, but I want you to pick one. I don't care which one you pick. It'd be kind of nice to see people choosing different ones. So the first question, I think I kind of asked already, but let's ask it again. Is there a gap between how you as a leader and your stakeholders perceive the existence of these disciplines? Go back to that study I just told you. What I didn't tell you was the principals took the same survey. The principals all thought that it was all wonderful. There was no deficits at all. Everything was hunky-dory. The teachers had a much finer, with a small f, cleaner perception of what was true and what wasn't true. It wasn't as though they killed everything that the administrator thought, which is the way it should be. But it was also true that they were much more objective about what they perceived because they're down in the trenches, and the leader sometimes is too busy deciding who put through pizza across the floor, unfortunately. And I can do a course just on that. So the question again is there a gap between how you as a leader and your stakeholders perceive the existence of these disciplines in your organization's operations? Interesting question. But you want to compare what you think your principal thinks versus what you think your faculty thinks? I'm not going to tell anybody. This is Las Vegas. Second theme, do you consider each of these disciplines equal in weight? It's a tricky question. I don't know what I think. I don't think they're equal. I don't think they're equal in each learning organization. In terms of weight, in terms of importance, I think they're equal. But in terms of existence, obviously, most times they're not. Which one do you think is probably the strongest, truly the strongest, and truly the weakest? Why? That's going to be it. You can answer that question for discussion if you'd like. Third piece. What are effective practices you use to strengthen, remediate deficits? Now, this question is presuming that you already are a principal or a chair or a program director, and you're not. So pretend. Right? What are good practices? Have you seen good practices? Have you read about good practices? Have we, mentioned it someplace along the way in our brief conversations together? What have you seen? Okay. Let's look for the positive on that one. And then I don't really know if I know the answer to this myself. I'm smiling. Which comes first? How do you identify your culture's operations or how you assess the existence of these disciplines? So in 25 words or less, what that's really saying is, which is more important to know, to have a grasp on? The existence of the 5 disciplines or the components of culture? Which is to say, please I'm making this clear, that they're not, he shouted, they are not mutually exclusive, not at all. They're not mutually exclusive. But does the chicken become before the egg, or does the egg become before the chicken? And I'm not saying which one is the chicken and which one is the egg. I have an opinion about it. I'll probably let you know what my opinion is when I read the discussion responses. Okay, so going back into the chapter text, there isn't anything, I don't think, that you haven't already seen on page, something I want to point out. 51, connecting to the TCMM, that's the collective mindset model. Pretty much says what I've been saying to you before. Here's an interesting point to think about and comment to this as well. Nobody in this class has said this to me, but I'm expecting that sooner or later somebody will, if I haven't already said that I think you're going to. many times teachers who take these kinds of programs early on, especially, sometimes they decide they're just taking it, for the heck of it. They want to learn the information. Sometimes they say that they don't know if they want to be an administrator, and others will say, "Yeah, I'm." In fact, as far as I can tell, this group is. You're drilled down. You will want to be administrators and certified in E&L issues. That's the understanding. However, people take these programs for different reasons, and a lot of times, I have one course I teach in another university where 3/4 of the people are not taking the courses for administrative licenses or leadership. They're taking it because they want horizontal credit, and you can see the difference in their commitment without any question. But a lot of those will come along the way as you get to the end of the course and say, I'm really glad I took this course and some of the other courses they may have taken as well. I never learned how to think this way. How come I didn't know these things? Why is this like the exclusive secret language among leaders and among administrators? You think about that for a minute. Why don't all teachers, all stakeholders, why don't they all know what these are? Doesn't mean they have to each have the same amount of skill set with them. But the more we talk about them and create the language of conversation and the themes that embed into what leadership and effective good schooling is about, the more we can have the teacher in the second grade say, my mental model of E&L, I don't think I'm correct about this, or I think I have this model of E&L, mental model of E&L. Somebody help me understand whether I'm crazy or whether I'm right, because people will begin to talk that language. If you pay attention to people's language, you can learn an awful lot about how they perceive most anything, but certainly organizational health and effectiveness. And if they don't know what you're talking about, or if they don't have a basic knowledge about these issues, how could you get them to want to accept the changes that you may want to put in place? They may be very alien to what they've ever been used to. I put those under your pillow tonight. It's a brief video, but I think that you've captured this. The content video I'll do it tomorrow morning. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that yet. Still thinking about it. I'm also going to post an article about equity that I should have posted a week or two ago. Slipped past me. That I'm probably going to make the second question about. And the other thing I wanted to remind you is that by the 12th, I'll say this in tomorrow's video too, each of you should have answered the Futures Quotient survey and scored it and sent the results to me. Diana, bless you, Diana. So I can't find this, Dr. B. And I said, I know I put it up there, but I forgot to publish it. I have a bad habit of not hitting that button to put it up for people to see. So it has been up for about 2 days now. Make it your business to answer that. It's like a 15-minute thing to do. And you'll get a feel for where you stand on certain things based on that. Okay? Enough said. So I will leave you to a good Saturday night. I hope that you are watching this video tonight. I hope that you're doing something else. Take care. Stay safe.